This week on Husker Huddle, we're joined by former black shirt defensive lineman and stud who's going to go play in the NFL, Khalil Davis. Khalil, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic over here at HSN. What I wanted to do with Khalil this week, Khalil, is get caught up a little bit. It's been about 5 months now since you left Nebraska, and it's some crazy times we're living in right now. I know you're back here in Lincoln training, but what are you doing right now to prepare yourself for the NFL, which at any moment could call and say, hey, draft's this day or rookie minicamp's this day or whatever it might be? What are some things right now that you're doing here in Lincoln to train?
Just staying active, pretty much. It's easy to just sit around in your apartment all day because, you really can't go anywhere. But just trying to stay active every day. We have a facility that's still open and training 6 or 7 of us. So I'm thankful for that because without that, I'd be having to do in-home workouts. So we've been staying active with him and just, like like soft tissue stuff at the apartment and that kind of thing. So
I mean, Khalil, you had an unbelievable combine. I think that you surprised not just a lot of people, but from what I read, you surprised yourself a little bit. The combine is an interesting place, and if you've never been there, it's hard to explain. But for our listeners, talk us a little bit what that week was like for you in Indianapolis.
It's very stressful. It's not what people think, but you're up 6 a.m. And I've heard that's not even the earliest, but we were up at 6 a.m. And then back in your room at 11, wake up again and do the same thing for the next 4 days. But it was a lot of interviews. It was basically a test all week just to see if you could get out of your character, see if you would lash out at certain things. And like I said, it was just a test on every part of everything that you did, whether it's talking to the people that are setting out the lunch and dinner for you, or whether it's you're talking to a stranger in the street. It's all a test just to see how well you can act under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about leading up. We all know how well you did at the Combine, but talk about the process from when you left Nebraska to when you got to the Combine. I know you went to the NFLPA Bowl, I see, or was it the East-West Shrine Game? One of the two. I know that you went and you had a really good week. Oh, you're wearing the shirt. Perfect. You went to the East-West Shrine Game. That's kind of your first taste of NFL talent. That's really when you first I got to actually play in that game as well. What was that game like for you when you actually are like, okay, you kind of start to measure yourself, right? You start to kind of say, okay, here's where I stack up against other guys that I'm going to be competing against. So talk a little bit about from when you went from Nebraska to that game to wherever you trained to the Combine and like kind of what that process it was like in itself.
Yeah, from after the season, I spent a couple weeks here to figure out what I wanted to do, find an agent. I found my agent, and then we went to go train in Georgia at a place called Gata. And that's where it's in Johns Creek, and really that's where I did all my training, 40 training, position-specific drills. And I trained for that. Since we didn't have a bowl game, I got there 2 weeks earlier than most people, so I was there December 28th for extra 2 weeks before we got to January, or a week and a half, and got to train for that. Went to the Shrine Bowl, and that was an experience. It was similar to the Combine, but it was just another test. It was cool to see, where you stacked up. You got to go up against real talent every day, and guys are really good from different conferences. And it was just a good test to see where you stand and how well you could do on a little bit bigger stage than college.
Yeah, so you get done with that game, you go back and you train. I mean, what are your days like? Are you running double days? Are you running single days? You got days off? Like, what does a day look like for a guy that's training? For me, I usually, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, I might be dating myself here, Groundhog Days with Bill Murray. He just relives the same day over and over and over and over again. Yeah. So that's what combine training felt like for me. What was it like for you?
It was pretty much the same. I was in a hotel, so it was a little bit harder for me because going back to the hotel all day, I would have rather just stayed at the facility. But it's pretty much same thing every day. It gets tedious, but that this is just part of the process. It was we had kind of like two different sessions, but we stayed up there all day. So we got there around 9 and did 40 training the first couple hours. Then we went back, ate lunch, stayed up there, took a nap in the facility, and then went back from 1 till about 3 and did position training, D-line stuff. And then you left, went home. By the time you got home, it was around 5 or 6. You rolled out, got ready for bed, and then did the same thing the next day. So it was, it's not anything, really fun, but it's part of our process. So.
Yeah, and the great thing is you only have to do it once, because now it's over. Now you get back to ball training. Now you get back to playing ball. And Khalil, I'm telling you, I've watched you for a long time, man. I think you're going to be a very dominant 3 technique in the NFL. I think that you have those abilities, and we're excited to move forward there. Let's talk a little bit about your Husker career, Khalil. You had a great success. You were the sack leader here last year. You played in a lot of different systems, but it didn't really matter. You had great success, and I think that's a testament to your work ethic. I think that's a testament to your knowledge of the game. But as you've had time to sit around in that hotel room of yours and reflect back on what it meant to be a Husker, what are some things that stand out to you?
Definitely when I left, when you leave, like the Husker tradition, it kind of amplifies. Like when you leave, for you it would be the pipeline, but when I left, it was like that Husker tradition and Husker, team. Just it felt stronger when I left. Like it's hard to explain, but like being a black shirt meant a lot more when you left. Like after you put in 5 years of work, and you're like, man, like I really been through a lot. I stuck through it. This is what I am. I'm a Husker for life. So it's fun to be able to watch it from a different perspective now. As a former Husker, you can watch it and keep your distance, but watch it as a fan and still be a part of the brotherhood.
I'll tell you this, watching a game as a former player is a lot more stressful and a lot more emotional than actually playing in the game. You'll figure that out this fall as you watch the guys. But talk to us a little bit about some of these young guys. I mean, this defensive line is in a massive rehaul for 2020. I mean, you lose yourself, you lose your brother, you lose Darian Daniels. I mean, really the only guy coming back that anyone's really going to know is Ben Stilley. But who are some of the guys that you're looking for in this 2020 class to step up and really fill those shoes of those 3 guys that left that were mainstays on that defensive line?
A couple guys, because I got to be a part of, the younger guys or the guys that Coach Frost brought in a little bit. So I saw them develop, but I'm looking for Casey Rogers, DeAndre Thomas, Damian Daniels, Tate, Keem. All those guys had 1 or 2 years, or this will be their second year of getting their feet wet. So, and I know I've seen what those guys could do, and I know what they're capable of. So I know that those guys will be all right once they get their feet wet, but they are young. And so, it's going to take a little bit, take a couple of, take some time. So hopefully, the spring ball and the fall camp, they get that in before the season so they can develop some more. But I think they'll be in good hands. Just need to get some experience.
Yeah, I mean, and there's only one way to get experience, and that's by playing. You went through 2 regime changes here, Khalil, and you're going with Scott Frost's system now going into year 3. You got to experience first 2 years. What are you looking for out of this team and going into its 3rd year, being only 1 year removed? I know a guy like myself being removed 6 years or 7 years is very different than you're 1 year removed. Do you understand what you built? You built the base layer here for what this team's going to be. What is something that as you look and you tune in on Saturdays next year, you want to see out of this Husker team and mostly out of the black shirts?
Just a lot of guys stepping up, and younger guys. Coach Frost brought that mentality of it doesn't matter, what grade you are, what senior, sophomore, you can make an impact. So I just want to see a lot, and he's done a lot of this in the time that I was there, but I just want to see a lot of those young guys just go make plays, establish themselves, and don't let being a freshman or sophomore, deter you of going and make plays.
That's awesome. Well, Khalil, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Husker Huddle. I'm very excited, and I'm sure Husker Nation's very excited to see you and your brother where you end up in the NFL draft this year, whenever and wherever it may take. I have no doubt that you're going to have a great, successful career. So thank you for joining us, and we'll make sure to catch up soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.